And as we continue on, this is a rare opportunity for me, and this is a distinct honor for me actually, to cover an album from this guy here. So I am going to be talking about Hammer and Chisel, which is a new studio album from Mr. Dokir himself, Richard Rajkumar, aka Chromatics. So for those who not in know, Chromatics is a veteran rapper slash calypsonian slash urban radio station owner hailing from my homeland of Trinidad and Tobago. And for over 2 decades, he's blazed his own trail with his signature brand of witty, razor-sharp bars mixed with Trini lexicon and ruffle tons of feathers, flocks of birds at this point within our entertainment and creative industries with his brutally honest commentaries on the acceptance and promotion of locally made hip-hop and the haphazard, let me be real here, development of our annual carnival festivities, the latter of which he's been addressing annually Uncle Murder style through his satirical carnival wrap-up series. Even though Chromatics has spent years building his brand through numerous singles, mixtapes, and EPs, this record is actually his 3rd studio album, 8 years in the making, following the 2012 release of his excellent concept album, The Business of Art, which was the first Chromatics album I ever listened to, and his 2007 debut, Against the Grain, which remains a cult classic within the local urban music scene, and one that I know for sure continues to inspire local MCs to this day. Speaking of EPs, Chromatics released Kobo Sweat a few months back, which is pretty much a simple, straightforward warm-up for what we could look forward to on Hammer and Chisel. Effortless flows, sticky hooks, and a versatile collection of beats. By the way, points for that Black Moon freestyle, by the way. I mean, if you're an Enter the Stage fan like I am, that track is designed for you. Interestingly, he opted to add what just might be his biggest collaborative track to date on this EP, Signs, featuring Griselda's own Benny the Butcher. And at first glance, you'd think a track like this should be on your long-awaited 3rd studio album, but in retrospect, it was a bold and smart call to keep it on that EP. In other words, if the quality level on Kobo Sweat was that high, then how high is the one for Hammer and Chisel? And I am happy to report that Hammer and Chisel's quality level is very, very high. And the key to its quality lies in the track list, which has this seamless, consistent flow, both thematically and tonally from track to track, creating this fully fleshed out characterization of Chromatics with emphasis on his growth and maturity as an artist and as a person over the years. On the opening song, Lessons Learned, we're treated to this smooth, hazy instrumental laced with these drum and guitar bits that sound like they were lifted from some 70s soul record. And lyrically, Chromatics talks about where he's currently at in his life and the mindset he's adopted at this point, focusing more on his physical and mental health, his craft, his business, and his family than on haters and gatekeepers who continually discredit and villainize his reputation. From here, we get a true album highlight in the form of Bitter Part 2, the official follow-up to a single which he put out, going back to how long he's been working on this record, 8 years ago. And this sequel goes just as hard as the original, with a menacing boom-bap beat, appropriately cocky ZFG attitude from Chromatics, and one of the album's most memorable hooks. Lyrically, Chromatics gets a lot of shit off his chest, like his credibility as a rapper being questioned just because he decided to put out some soca songs, and the jealousy surrounding the success he's built up for years. But where this song truly shines is in his commentary on the current Trinidad dancehall scene, where songs about sex and violence are welcomed by urban radio stations, as long as they're edited of course, but local rap still isn't accepted, regardless of topic. And while it would be easy to bash the artists for putting out music like that, Chromatics pins the blame on the consumers who willingly put their blinders on and digest the music and yet are quick to comment on how violent the country is and how corrupted the youth is. The irony that he points out here is that this is the way many young artists get their name out there, and yet there's no radio station, record label, or music industry as a whole, let me be real here, rewarding them financially for their music. We then transition from the bitterness of Bitter Part 2 to a bona fide banger with the track Major. Here, Chromatics brags about his self-made musical brand, which allows him to put out music on his own time, through his own channels, and most importantly, gives him the freedom to set a price on his art. And just off the bouncy vibe of the production and overall fun Chromatics is having on this track, I could already tell that Major will be on many of his live show set lists going forward. The same can be said for That's Nasty, the hook of which is a reference to a line from Lil Wayne's verse of the Drake single Miss Me, which is one of the three things I honestly remember about that song. That and the hook and Drake saying how much he loved Nicki Minaj. But anyway, the production features these boisterous blaxploitation inspired horns that gives the track and Chromatics' demeanor this cocky, hustler / player like vibe to it. Think of it as equivalent to Curtis Mayfield's Superfly, but instead of the anthem of a drug dealer, this is the anthem of a veteran Trinidadian rapper who could say what he want to whoever he want and make you vibe out to it, even if he ends his verses like he does here on a gleefully nasty note. We then get another album highlight with the track Champion Sound, which finds Chromatics and guest performers Sammy Joe and the legendary Black Chariot International sound system, with its selector Gage providing a solid intro, paying tribute to the Trinidad-based dancehall sound clashes of the 90s and 2000s, and the sound systems who brought that energy and vibe to those events. Sammy's inclusion on this track makes a lot of sense given her experience in the local reggae scene, and she gives the song an authentic reggae / dancehall vibe with her toasting lyrical style. But it's Chromatics who steals the show with his recollection of the days when dancehall and reggae were prominent on the airwaves, when you couldn't wait to hear a new dub plate on radio or in the middle of a song clash, and if you're like me, having a huge collection of reggae and dancehall mixtapes, specifically the Music 3001s, if you know, making you feel like you were a selector in your own right. Going back to the flow of this record, I love how after the aggressive cuts and club bangers, things smooth out considerably on the second half, starting with Link Up, which sounds and feels like the buzz or high or contact high you get in the club after the DJ played a track like Champion Sound. Chromatics sounds just as high and relaxed as the sensual woozy production, which he uses to simply encourage the bodies listening to the song to keep flexing on the haters. The smooth momentum of the album continues with the chilled out boom bap sounds of Your Way, a deeply inspirational track where Chromatics encourages listeners to keep moving forward towards their goals and not let prior setbacks define who they are and what they are destined to achieve. And given his 2-decade run in the local rap scene, the facts he's spitting here on this track are more than enough to inspire anyone who calls themselves a creative. On the last quarter of this album, we're treated to 4 of what are arguably the most heartfelt and personal tracks Chromatics has ever recorded. First, we have Girl Next Door, where, over some pleasant R&B grooves, Chromatics pays tribute to his wife, highlighting how supportive she's been to him during their union and the unconditional love he has and will continue to have for her. Seeing that this is the section of the album where his focus will be on family, it makes sense that the following track, Sunny Day, be a dedication to his firstborn son. And boy, this track is so undeniably optimistic and affectionate and bright and sunny. Even the beat itself sounds bright and sunny with its laid-back drums and jazzy horns, which give the track a nostalgic 90s East Coast rap sound to it. I also love how thoughtful Chromatics is on this track, as he raps about how his views on life have changed now that he's a father, and how he's ready to support his son on his life journeys, which more than likely may involve music. So if you're looking for a new song to add to your Father's Day rap song playlist, because I know Will Smith's Just the Two of Us has been, worn down by now, check this one out and add it now, please. We then get the surprisingly ambiguous Wrong and Strong, that at first may feel like an odd song to place in the track list since the last 2 songs were about family and this one kinda isn't. But when you dive in deeper, and I mean really, really deeper, and to be honest, I'm not sure if I came up with a 100% correct interpretation of it, you realize that this song is related to something just as close to Chromatics' heart as family, his art. He recalls his creative / business partnership he had with an individual that eventually led to them falling out and parting ways indefinitely. But with every listen I gave this track, my mind kept going back to the line in the first verse where he says, "So red, black and white, all the beans, I'ma spill it." Now, while I know little about Chromatics' struggle within the local music world, I'm not going to say industry because, let me be real here, over the past 10 years or so, I suspect, I could be wrong here, but I suspect this song may have to do with his transition into soca and calypso roughly 6 years ago. And though he attained success with tracks like My Type outside man and kind of way, I imagine that this betrayal he's addressing on this track here was a major roadblock during that creative period. And even though he had to put his music on hold to deal with some serious family issues, one of which comes up on the next track, he still managed to bounce back. And what's worse is that his naysayers will continually twist his side of the story to make him look like the villain. But that won't stop him from speaking his truth nonetheless. The closing track, Proud of Me, focuses on one of those family issues mentioned earlier, his mother's struggle with cancer. And along with the disenchanted, piano-driven production on this track, the first few bars delivered by Chromatics makes it painfully clear that she lost that battle. And as someone who lost his mother 3 years ago, yeah, this is a tough track for me to sit through. The first verse in particular is really rough, as you can literally hear Chromatics maintain his composure before bursting into tears for a bit near the end of the hook. And yet there's this sense of joy and acknowledgement for his mom's time and place in his life expressed through the second and third verses that feels so heartwarming and uplifting. As anyone who's lost someone near and dear to them knows, the pain of that loss is unbearable at times. But if we hold on to the memories of their time on earth and remember what they meant to us during that time, that pain becomes bearable. And as Chromatics states in his song's final moments, we ultimately become better people through that pain and loss. So yeah, overall, this is a fantastic record from Chromatics, and I think it's easy to say that this is his best album yet. What's amazing about it to me is that even though this is his third album in his 2-decade career, it still exhibits the consistency and creativity associated with his brand throughout that long period of time. I don't know if we'll get any more albums from him in the near future, but I do hope that this isn't his last. This is an absolute must-listen for seasoned and first-time fans. Unless you're still mad about something Chromatics said in some wrap-up back in 2012 or whatever, still give this a listen. It's one of my favorite albums of the year so far, and for that, I'm giving this a light 9 out of 10. It's on Bandcamp right now, so check it out, buy the record. Feel free to let me know what you thought about it in the comment section, and if you want, you can tell me how wrong I am about my interpretation of Wrong and Strong. And yeah, that's pretty much it.